Now, give us some details, please, on this hydro plant. We're talking about 60 megawatts comprising 2 units. How is the deal structured and how is it going to benefit both Uganda and Tanzania?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, Tanzania and Uganda did actually sign a memorandum of understanding to develop on their common border a hydropower project to be undertaken by an independent power producer. And the plan is to produce 16 megawatts. Of course, this is up from a previous 10 megawatts planned by a previous investor. And this will be supplied to both countries on equal basis, 8 megawatts to both parties. And depending on the capacity to utilize the power, the first production will be diverted into the power grid of Uganda, and then supplied to Tanzania.
You talk about an independent power producer, and this is really a huge debating point in Africa, is do we have enough companies that can generate electricity independently? How viable are these projects for those independent producers? What would they charge customers? What would they charge the government? How have you gone about it?
Yes, indeed, this is not a new thing. For about 40 years ago, there was a small hydropower station at the place, but this was destroyed way back in 1978. This is a part of the rehabilitation of the project, but also adding it a capacity to produce more power, which will be made available to the border area, and as well as the district in Tanzania and on the Uganda side. As far as the independent investor is concerned, the investor is actually proved to produce, to have in availability resources enough to fund the project. Is an investor not from Uganda and Tanzania, but is from outside Tanzania and Uganda.
And then obviously there's going to be a bilateral pact that governs how the project is to be managed, the modalities of power exchange. What are the responsibilities that Uganda and Tanzania have in this resource share?
In fact, this being a memorandum of understanding is actually a framework. What remains is the details on how to distribute, how to pay for it, and etc. The details of operations. This will be included in the bilateral agreement. Yes, indeed, there is a joint technical committee that is looking into the operation, and the committees have already looked into the various negotiating points, which will actually guide them into the distribution, generation, and the use of the power.
Right.
Also, it will determine the period which the investor will invest, and after that period, whether the project will be owned or the ownership will change to the different power entities of those countries or not. So these are things to be worked out during the next 2-3 months, and I hope by end of the year all these things will be ready and the investor could be on the ground by the first 2 months of next year.
And finally, Mr. Lauwo, I mean, this project forms part of a broader program that the East African community has on cross-border electrification. How well is it working in the region? Because we know that a lot of countries rely on hydropower. There's been a drought. So effectively, there are a lot of elements working against the success of these kinds of projects.
Yeah, indeed, as you could appreciate, the issue of power, energy, and in particular electricity, is quite inadequate in a number of our countries, much as it is the source and the linchpin to economic development activities. So what we need to do, and what we are doing actually, one is we are looking towards establishing mechanisms that will enable electrification of the border areas where there is electricity. The other part of the border, the other country can benefit. But what we're also saying, we're trying to pool the available resources, available electricity, so that where we generate a surplus, that can also be exchanged and to the other partner state with lacking capacity. But the third one, we are looking also on the sort of South Pool, where we would like to have electricity generated in Zambia, for example, pass through Tanzania to Kenya, a program that is on the ground already, and so that we increase the capacity of power availability. We have experienced a drought in many areas, and this has retarded our capacity to generate from the hydropower. The replacement to the thermal and others is becoming more expensive and making production difficult.